welcome to Everything Fear, your one-stop shop for all things horror. I'm Kit Tinsley. I'm a horror author, film academic and general horror geek. Today it is episode 15 of our series A Life in Horror. In this series I pick out my top 5 favourite horror movies of every year that I've been alive. This episode is all about the year 1992. Number 5. Sleepwalkers. This is one of those rare incidents of a movie written by Stephen King that's not based on one of his previous works, either a short story or a novel. It's the story of a shape-shifting, incestuous mother and son who've moved to a small town to find a virgin girl to psychically feed on. Directed by Mick Garris, who would go on to direct a number of Stephen King adaptations, the film is far more entertaining than its premise or budget would suggest. There is some dubious CGI in the form of early 90s morphing, but the practical effects and the creature design hold up really well even now. The cast are really good, especially the always amazing Alice Krige. Perhaps most interesting though are some of the cameos within the film. You've got Stephen King himself, Clive Barker, Toby Hooper, Joe Dante, John Landis and Mark Hamill, all making an appearance in this film. Number 4. Innocent Blood. Director John Landis already had a high standing for his handling of werewolves in An American Werewolf in London and zombies in the Michael Jackson Thriller video. With Innocent Blood, he turned his hand to the vampire. A female vampire refused to feed on innocent people. Instead, she targets mobsters to feed herself. She just has to make sure that she kills her prey. When interrupted whilst attacking a vicious mob boss, she leaves him alive and able to turn into the undead himself. He uses his powers to turn his gang into vampires and take over the entire city's underworld. The female vampire teams up with a cop to take down this Nosferatu mafia. This is a really underrated gem, though never reaching the heights of American Werewolf in London. It is still nonetheless an extremely entertaining horror comedy action movie. Number 3. Army of Darkness. Sam Raimi's third entry in the franchise that made his name carries on with the storyline that is teased at the end of Evil Dead 2. Bruce Campbell's reluctant hero Ash is sent back in time to medieval times. Only the Necronomicon has the power to send him back to his own time. But when he fluffs the incantation, he accidentally releases an army of deadites. Ash must use his wits and his engineering skills to lead an army of knights against this army of the dead. But personally, I feel that this is the weakest film in the trilogy. It's still a brilliant film and still an immensely entertaining watch. Bruce Campbell is on brilliant form as Ash, and there's certainly a lot to be enjoyed in the improved special effects. For me though, the movie veered a little too far into comedy and a little too far away from its horror roots. Number 2. Bram Stoker's Dracula. This film really should be called Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. The use of the name of Bram Stoker in its title tries to suggest that this is the authentic adaptation of the novel. Though certainly closer to the source material than other adaptations, there is still a lot in this film that doesn't come from the novel. The romance between Mina and Dracula is a prime example, and Mina being the reincarnation of Dracula's long-lost love. These things just don't exist in the novel Dracula. In fact, the scene where Dracula turns Mina in the book is not in the slightest bit romantic. It's not the steamy, consensual affair that the film portrays. If anything, it's more of a symbolic rape that portrays Dracula's power over the men who are chasing him. It is, however, a beautiful film, with stunning visuals and special effects. It also has a fantastic score. The performances are almost all great, particularly from Gary Oldman as Dracula, Winona Ryder as Mina, and Anthony Hopkins as Abraham Van Helsing, the latter of whom plays the role with this sort of deranged glee that makes the character seem as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than Dracula himself. The only weak links in this film are some glaringly bad continuity errors, and Keanu Reeves' stilted performance as Jonathan Harker. I think Keanu Reeves is brilliant, and a great actor when given the right role. But in this, with his terrible accent and his wooden performance, he should not really have been cast. If you enjoyed this video, if you could please subscribe, give us a like, and maybe tickle that bell icon to be notified when we upload future content, that would be great, thank you. Number 1. Candyman. Clive Barker wrote a short story set on the grim council estates and tower blocks of inner city Liverpool, called The Forbidden. This story dealt with a legendary entity called the Candyman, who, as long as his story was remembered, would leave the residents alone. But if his legend was forgotten, or his truth questioned, he would strike to regain his power. Filmmaker Bernard Rose made the wise decision of taking that story and that monster and relocating it to the Cabrini Green projects in Chicago. In doing so, he took the social commentary of class within the original short story and added race into the mix. This is possibly one of the best horror movies of the 1990s. It has an amazing, uneasy atmosphere, thanks in part to Philip Glass's minimalist and hypnotic score. Virginia Madsen gives an amazing performance as Helen Lyle, a grad student investigating the Candyman urban legends. Apparently, Rose had it organised so that he could easily put Madsen into a hypnotic state, and he used this to great effect in those sequences where she has this trance-like, unblinking appearance. Tony Todd, with his physical presence and that calm, soothing baritone voice, gives Candyman an air of distinction not usually known by slasher killers. In fact, the only other villain I can think of with a similar sort of gravitas to Candyman is Pinhead in the original Hellraiser movie. Sadly, the sequels were a diminishing return on the power and originality of the first movie. Hopefully, the new movie coming out this year will return some of the greatness to this franchise, but we will have to wait and see. Well, that was my favourite horror movies of 1992. What are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, stay scared and stay tuned.